But then after first semester, I saw actually in one of my classes called Contemporary Issues in Art, we had an urban planning professor. He came in and he pretty much explained like a huge slideshow about urban planning, explaining that, you know, through social justice and combining urban planning and thinking about the world as a pretty much a landscape that we as artists can kind of conquer and create for people to experience. So I was like, okay, this is like a legit major. Like, I can do art, I can do policy making, I can do sustainability, I can do social justice, all within one like major. People need to normalize the communication between people who have been imprisoned and people who are like living here on campus. So they're trying to break the barrier between, you know, these people aren't bad people. Yes, they were locked away, but they were locked away for wrong reasons. They had, if you see here in the county, a lot of white people go under the radar for marijuana possession, but people who are African American, even for having, I think, like, it was like the most obscene, like, little amount of marijuana, they get thrown into the prison. I feel like it's important for us to educate ourselves with the community around us, because I didn't know about these statistics till I went to the YMCA at Lazarus Hall. They held a huge forum lecture for the community, and students were allowed to come to it. And I just realized, wow, like, I never knew there's this much homelessness in the county. There's this much vacant rentals that are happening here. And the problem is we keep building sky rises, right, for like all this student housing. Actually, outside of our like little campus town, 3,000 rentals that are still vacant and no one's gonna buy from. We can really put the homeless population all inside those rentals and our problem will be fixed. But that sounds so easy, right? But there's so many legalities that are happening between this, where the problem is a lot of landowners for the private property of rentals, they actually create these illegal, pretty much set lists of saying you can't be in this apartment for X, Y, and Z. You're not supposed to be able to tell someone, oh, because you're African American, I'm not going to sell to you. But they do that illegally, and it's not being pretty much, it's getting unseen. And that's the problem too in our county, is that there's just so many things that are going under the rug, and no one's really taking their time to unravel the history of it. Don't you wanna know what you're missing? 1, 2, 3. With social justice, it just keeps getting harder to stay passionate. We're all like, there's just so many problems when you think about it. How do we even start with a solution? We were all being so overwhelmed with how many problems that were only concentrated in Champaign. Think about, we were talking about St. Louis and Ferguson with Mike Brown and all the other cities, and how those enclaves were created with gentrification. And I'm like, how do we even start with our own area if there's so many other areas and districts that have so much injustice? So that's where we as like urban planners were just feeling so overwhelmed with the problem, because we're students too. We don't have the funding, we don't have, you know, the support compared to, you know, like professors with like tenure who are doing these research projects. And we're like, what can we do as students now? Because it's just, we're learning about it, but we're not being able to do anything. So it's very frustrating, because you're like, I know all these statistics, I know all these problems with the law, but I'm just learning. How can I actually like implement it? So that's overwhelming, with the fact of just knowing you have so much knowledge, but you can't do anything with the knowledge. You're doing an independent concentration now. Like, what do you want to do? And I was like, ooh, I kind of want to keep within the realm of really trying to give people of color the voice and normalizing their beauty. Actually, I've toured with 2 different companies. The first one is just with the IHSAE. It's like the Illinois Art Institute of like exhibitions. They pretty much took my work of the Great Depression and they toured it to the state capitol building in Springfield, and I was able to pretty much talk to lawmakers about how art is very important. And I pretty much gave a speech about art education, how it needs to be integrated, especially in high schools. Because, you know, I heard, like, we had like different panelists, and we just found out all these disparities within high school, saying they didn't have enough funding for it, so they cut the art program first. It's like the first thing they cut, versus sports or science, you know, like, but I'm trying to pretty much create the argument to the lawmakers that this is an important education piece, and it really teaches people just amazing skills that you wouldn't get traditionally in like a history, English class. I think it's so important that I grew up in such a non-traditional household that like people would call it, but I call it home, but people call it, you know, something else. But I think just hearing that, like, the passion for my parents, the why they adopted, was really interesting hearing growing up. Like, as a little kid, I saw my mom as my mom. I never saw her as my white mom until high school. And that's when I had a big transition period where when I got to high school and told people I was adopted, they were like, no, that's your white mom. And I never called her that. And I was like so astonished that people even had like the audacity to tell me that she was something else to me besides just mom. And I realized coming into high school, people try to identify you and really try to put you into boxes. So then I started identifying as, oh, I'm a Chinese adopted American. I started giving myself that label. But as a kid, I never gave myself that label. So it's very interesting to see as we grow up, we actually are more likely to start seeing race as like, people kind of see it as like a bad thing, and they start putting you in this like barrier. And as a kid, you just play with anyone. You really don't think about, you know, oh, she's from this family or this. You just want to play with people. You just want to, like, you know, have fun. And it was like, you know,